My name is Mwanga Emmanuel Luturumoy. I'm a resident in United States of America. I'm an immigrant who left Africa in 2017. Today, I'm talking about education and support to enhance development in the area I come from, Acholi sub-region in Uganda, East Africa, in Africa. As I stated, my name is Mwanga Emmanuel Luturumoy. Why am I telling this story? To me, I believe every story needs a listener. And when listened to, life can change. And today, my story is simple. It's a long story, but I don't know how to cut it short. But I'll try my best to bring it into and compact message. I've just registered an organization called Acholi Recovery Development Institute. It is a not-for-profit organization that is supposed to enhance the initiatives I've been pursuing for the past 15 or so years in Africa, Acholi sub-region in Uganda. Who are the Acholi people? These are the people who live in northern part of Uganda. These are the people who went through war for over 2 decades and a half. And these are the people who are struggling to come up to real life. These are people who has thousands of children living in child-headed households. These are children, most of them were abducted as children, were taken as child soldiers or sex slaves by the rebels who have been tagged to be terrorists, and they came back as young adults who do not have any origin, any background, any home. So they've come back and they're in thousands. They are trying to settle and head their own homes, their own siblings. This is a danger to the world because most of them do not have education. Most of them survive to see. I wish you can read my research and see how they adapted to living in a very hostile world. Why am I talking about education? I believe that education can transform the world. Nelson Mandela told us once that education is one of the most important tools for development. So today, I think I should talk about education, and I call upon everyone who will listen to my story to come and support the initiative. I believe that every story needs a listener, and when listened to, life can change. Why education? I want to give a small explanation. Unlike the United States of America, where the government takes charge of children from elementary level to university, and they have student loans and so on, in Uganda, education is a privilege. It's not a right. It is for the educated, rich few. Because of corruption and so much. I not delve so much on that. But I wanted to let you know that you have to educate yourself. Like my story, I was born an orphan. I didn't have a father. My mother died of AIDS in 1994 when I was about 14 years. And I struggled through thick and thin to see that I educate myself. In Africa, in Uganda, if you have no parents, you have to educate yourself. Meaning, the government does not come in. When the government comes in, it comes in to support their supporters, those who support the regime. We have a government that has been in power for 34 years. We have a president who has been in power for 34 years. Meaning, we need to do something as a people. There were a lot of initiatives that came in place, like the PRDP. It was just to cover the face of the world. because whatever happened in northern Uganda, in Acholi sub-region, was a smart genocide. I encourage you to go and watch a video called Smart, Brilliant Genocide. In 1994, 4 days before my mother died, she told me, "You're a miracle boy." I asked her why. She said, "You should have been aborted, but you survived in my womb, and I produced you on the day I was born on Christmas Day." And from that time to date, I've realized I'm a true miracle person. Because at that time, we were being stigmatized. My mother was sick of HIV/AIDS. Everybody in the village would ridicule us, and life was so difficult. But we survived on until our death. But before our death, we struggled in the city of Kampala. Because I told you before that in northern Uganda, we had a war that started in 1986. My mother came and picked me up from Gulu in 1986 because I was seeing a lot of injustices. I saw our cows, our cattle, our wealth all being robbed. I saw my aunts being raped. There was too much injustice. Fortunately, my mother came and picked me as a little boy and took me to the city of Kampala. From Kampala, she was working, and I went to one of the best schools in the city. And I went to primary 1, primary 2. Unfortunately, she lost her job. When she lost her job in 1987, life turned to the negative. And slowly, we started seeing injustices brought by our stepfather, who decided to marry other 3 wives into our house. We saw fighting, abuse, alcoholism, everything. And at that point, I decided to leave home and go to the streets of Kampala. I became a fully fledged homeless child. I must tell you, it was tough for me. It was so tough. If I'm to recall, I remember eating in dustbin. I had no hope, but little hope that one day I'll go back to my home district in Gulu and start living again. My dream was to go to school. My dream was to study, because at school I used to be number 1, number 2, number 1, number 2. So I was smart enough to reach the high level of education. So from that time, because of the little hope I had on the streets of Kampala, we were engaged in doing small businesses. You could go and get sugarcane from people's garden, work in their garden, child labor, and they give us back, and we go sell, and that's how we survive. After getting some little money, I went back to my district in Gulu. It was in terrible war. In Gulu, we would sleep in the bushes. You can't sleep in the house. You go and sleep in the village. You go look for the bush. If it comes to 6 p.m. in the evening, you have to go and sleep in the bush for fear of being abducted. It's terrible. So I struggled and did every hard labor job to educate myself. And in 2003, I was able to graduate with mass communication from Makerere University. And I was a student leader. As a student leader, I was able to meet some Japanese students and leadership. I met one Japanese called Naoko Sakuragi. This Japanese friend went and saw the suffering of our people, children sleeping by the roadside. She said, "I'll go back to Japan and mobilize support." Together with her, we mobilized some money. And ordinarily, because I wasn't corrupt, I was able to give back to the people. Guess what happened? in 2003, I was seated just at the small bar of a gentleman in the main street of Gulu town. It's now a city. This gentleman decided to pick dirty water, you call it water, and poured on children sleeping by his veranda. At that time, thousands of children would come to sleep by the roadside in fear of being abducted. By the way, the LRA had abducted over 30,000 children to be sex slaves or to be child soldiers. In 1994, I was personally abducted and tortured. Thank God I escaped after a year, and most of my friends died in captivity. It's a long story. That, to cut the story short, most children would come to sleep by the roadside. So one night, my dream was to buy blankets, to buy mats, to give to these children. But when this man poured water at midnight on children sleeping by his veranda, I asked him why he did that. He said they litter my compound. I felt so annoyed. I felt like punching him. It reminded me of my life when I was a street kid. It reminded me of my life when I was homeless and sleeping by the roadside in the city of Kampala and eating in dustbin. And these are children who are, in the morning, they wake up early, go back home and rush to school. From school, home, back to town to sleep by the veranda. I felt so pained. It reminded me of the pain I went through at the roadside. I went to the district leadership the next day. I asked the district chairman, the late Colonel Ochora Walter, you can Google. And they gave me land in Kaunda grounds in Gulu. And when they gave me that land, I was the first person to build the first night commuter center in Gulu. Night commuter center became a thing. Most NGOs, not for profit organizations, non-governmental organizations, decided to build several shelters. Others for money making, whatever. But my interest was to see that we house these children who were sleeping on the streets. I didn't want them to be like me when I was a little boy. It is from that time that after building a big shelter, we kept thousands of children. I literally went and picked children from the roadside and took them back to sleep at the shelter. For 4 years, from 2003 up to 2006, that's when we took them back home. At the time when there was Juba peace process and the gun, when the silence of the gun went down and there was a relative peace and people started recovery process. Fortunately, I picked about 4 children from these bedeviled children who were sleeping at the shelter, who were homeless. And in the video I have, I encourage you to watch. They had a dream. I want to be a doctor. I want to be an engineer. I want to be this and that. Guess what? Today, these stars who were homeless, who were sleeping on people's veranda, are now responsible citizens from primary level to university. With the help of friends, with the help of you, friends, were able to educate them from primary to university. As I speak, Akomo Nancy Akera is a lecturer. She finished her first degree. She got first class. She became a junior lecturer. She has a master's. And right now, as I speak, Akera Nancy is Actually, she is the manager of one of the biggest forestry company. Rubakene is water resource engineer degree, and is working as a manager too. And Ochora Walter, Ochora Norbert, as a speaks an engineer. So is a civil engineer. What am I talking about? I'm saying we have a success story. I've seen personally that when we educate a person, his or her life can change. And I call upon you to look at these videos that I have that shows you exactly whatever I'm talking is not an hoax. Go to YouTube, to Amazon. I have a book I authored, The Luo Secrets, and it has my story. Go to the district, the evidence are there on children abducted. I was abducted in 1994. I wanted to get to USAID. USAID, actually, we did a food security program in 2007. And my initiative, United Youth Action for Progress, was stopped in terms of, implementing the food security program. We supported over 5,000 farmers in Omoro sub-county. Members of the Senate went to Gulu and surveyed and witnessed what we did between 2008 and 2009. We have the records. So basically, why ARDI, that is Acholi Recovery Development Institute, we look forward to transforming lives of many. We have enough strategy on how to transform the lives of over 2 million people living in Acholi sub-region who have been denied education. Most of the traditional schools cannot produce first grade. We need to produce the children of the poor. The children heading households should be able to become doctors. Engineers who fly planes should be lawyers and professionals. They should transform their communities. And through this approach that we have a multifaceted approach, both economic education, which looks at vocational and practical skills, because back home in Africa and Uganda, the education system is the trash. So we are looking forward to reconstructing education in the Acholi sub-region so that we produce a critical mass of people who can transform the society and transform the country, Uganda, Africa, and the world. And we try to limit. Because of these challenges that I've gone through, I must tell you, we are developing terrorism. We are developing people who don't care, people who have nothing to lose. Nothing completely to lose. So I call upon you to come and support our initiative. I have a long, big story, but I cannot tell you all right now in this video. But I call upon you, let's support Acholi Recovery Development Institute so that we can build a better future for our people and the world and make the world a peaceful place to live in. I thank you so much and God bless you. Looking forward to working with you. Thank you.